Let's bring in United States Ambassador to NATO, Ambassador Matthew Whitaker. Good to see you, sir.
Great to be with you. Thank you.
You clearly understand diplomacy is rarely easy and clean. We saw this over the weekend, right? So some fighting in the Strait of Hormuz. Strikes were traded back and forth. It does seem like things are back on track. Now, albeit we haven't heard confirmation from the Iranians, there's still time. Talk to us about what needs to be discussed in Doha to really give you and give Americans confidence that this time will be different when it comes to sanctions, when it comes to inspections, when it comes to Iran not continuing just to stall as they usually do.
Well, first, we need to understand that President Trump has made very clear certain red lines. Wants to ensure, first, that Iran never has a nuclear weapon. Second, make sure that the Strait of Hormuz stays and remains open and toll-free. And then finally, wants to make sure that this region, through the Iranian proxies in the Middle East, can be peaceful. And so this is a very complex negotiation. Obviously, the MOU was the first step, but the hard work with technical experts and diplomats hammering out a deal. But President Trump not only is coming from a position of holding all the cards, but he also has the strongest, most powerful military in the world. And so if it's necessary to make sure that everybody stays on the right path to a peace deal and a resolution that's in the best interest of the American people, that's where he will be. And, I think he is a peacemaker, and he is always going to first come from a position that he wants a peace deal, but at the same time, he knows that he holds all the cards, and we are strong.
Yeah, and I do think we've heard over and over, whether it be from President Trump or Marco Rubio or Vance, they know that they need actions, not just talk. So we're still within that framework here, the 60 days. Ambassador, I want to get your take. I haven't had you on since this story developed. Defense Secretary, War Secretary Pete Hegseth wants the Pentagon to basically review European performance, leaders of a lot of European nations, where things stand. And, obviously there was the tensions of what NATO was and wasn't doing when the conflict in Iran first started. We covered that extensively. But moving forward, the Pentagon is certainly eyeing the alliance. What would be sort of your best case scenario on what happens, what needs to be improved, whether it be communication, whether it be monetary spending, and whether it just be coordination and support?
Right. Well, first, I was with Secretary Hegseth when we announced that we were going to do not only a force posture review over the next 6 months, but also a basing review. And I think that comes out of first making sure that we can use our bases here in Europe to project power as the United States of America, to make sure that we have the right number of forces and properly deployed, and to make sure that our allies understand that we were very disappointed, both in several of them that either didn't allow or were very difficult in allowing our access to our own bases. But second, and most importantly, we're not helpful with political statements that, really were not supportive of the United States' effort to make sure that Iran doesn't have a nuclear weapon. And so, I think you throw this all in the mix together with what we're doing at NATO already, and that is getting everyone into the 5% spending level on defense. And I think it's very good that we evaluate this on a continuing and ongoing basis. We have the summit for NATO next week in Ankara, Turkey. And ultimately, that is going to be the first report card after last year's meeting in The Hague, where we all agreed to the 5%. The United States is leading the way. We will be well into 5% plus with our $1.5 trillion budget next year. And we expect others to follow us and follow our lead. And ultimately, Europe is going to and must take over the conventional defense of the European continent. It's been too long, 77 years.
Well,
Eisenhower told us this was a problem.
Yeah, you certainly are at the center and the nexus of all of this. So we await the readout after July 7th. Ambassador. I want to ask you about some of the pushback as well that J.D. Vance had to correct the record when it came to conversation he was having with Bill Maher about critics saying, was Iran's nuclear weapon program actually set back at all? Here's our vice president.
The thing that you have to destroy is their ability to enrich uranium, which has been destroyed. That enriched stockpile is something that we want to get. But, Bill, if we never get it, and the president wants it, and we are going to get it, but if we never got it, it's buried deep underground, and they don't have the ability to turn it into a nuclear weapon. So the program is functionally destroyed.
I mean, that seems pretty clear. I mean, we've seen all the military action. I can see people criticizing the deal, the framework, but Ambassador, to continue to push back on whether or not they are where they are before this all started with their nuclear capabilities, that seems counterintuitive, unintelligent. But what do you make of those critics who are trying to say that there wasn't enough done?
It's inconsistent with the facts. I mean, we know that we used some of our most sophisticated weapons to disable that program, to make sure that they can't make a nuclear weapon. And, you know, whether they were 2 weeks out or 2 years out from developing a nuclear weapon, once they cross that threshold, like North Korea did, then you no longer have any ability to contain that. And a nuclear-capable Iran with lunatics, as Secretary Rubio has called them, with a nuclear weapon menacing the entire world together with a ballistic missile program is a cost that obviously President Trump was not willing to accept. And so ultimately he used the most powerful military in the world to dramatically degrade and, to the vice president's point, put deep underground where no one can access it anymore. But at the same time, this is why we're negotiating this deal and why we're in the 60-day period. There will be a lot of back and forth. I mean, that's the way these negotiations work. But, you know, first of all, as I mentioned, Donald Trump's a peacemaker, but he's also a negotiator. And so he knows the deal he wants, and he's going to get that deal that's in the best interest of the American people.
Ambassador Matthew Whitaker, NATO, sitting there in Brussels, watching it all for us with your unique perspective, sir. Always great to have you. Thank you so much for joining us here today.
Good to see you again.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.